Hello, everybody. Welcome to our talk. We're going to be talking to you today a little bit about scaling DevOps in enterprises and some of the challenges that we've seen across some of the companies that we work with and some of the solutions that we've seen that work well to address some of these problems, both from our customers and from our own experience. My name is Jason Lenny. Probably some of you saw me at the keynotes where I was up there for just a moment. I'm the Director of Technical Product Management for XebiaLabs. I work on the XL release and the XL Insight project, which you guys saw today. My background is actually in operational and release management. So I haven't always been a product director, but I joined the company because our product is so focused on release orchestration, release automation, that it seemed like a great fit. And I'm really enjoying my time here working on those problems. My background is, as was said, I worked at Nike most recently. Before that, I worked at Riot Games, Electronic Arts, and I've worked at a number of large enterprises that are doing software delivery in DevOps style or just really at large scale.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Manu Varshney, and I'm the product manager for XebiaLabs XL release software. I come from a technical background, started my career as a tester, then a developer, a product owner, and now being a product manager. Really enjoying that. Over to you. That's a short description.
So we'll start with some of the challenges that we've seen first. Some of these were touched on during Tim's presentation as well, but we'll dive a little bit deeper, I think, in some of these. So are you guys familiar with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs? It's kind of the basic things that you need in order to live a self-actualized life. We've built a sort of similar display here for what enterprises need in order to do DevOps at scale. So at the basic level here are all the automation, error reduction, efficiency, and speed, these kinds of things that when you're first rolling out DevOps, you have to implement right away, and they're the sort of clear things that you see at first. Next up are the enterprise requirements, and then following that are the management and business needs. These are the things that Tim was talking about in the second half of his presentation, where he was talking about a lot of these things like compliance and security, scaling the organization, doing risk assessment, and that continuous learning organization stuff that we saw in his presentation. The top challenges that we've seen at companies that we work with are these. So different people within the organization speaking different languages. So DevOps is bringing lots of new people to work together. So it's not just Dev and Ops these days, but architects are involved, compliancy teams are involved. Many teams are involved, and they are all trying to speak. They're all working together to deliver software, but they speak very different languages. They have different priorities, and it can be difficult without focus to get them to all work together. Communication gaps or a flood in communication. So as team structures change, as people move to new communications methods, the ability to target communications is changing, and it's not as easy as it was when we had major releases that were managed by a release management team, and communications were clear who they needed to go to. And teams are either finding that they're not receiving communications on releases that they should or software delivery that they should, or they're just sort of getting updates on everything, and it's just a flood of content that they can't manage. Compliancy and security, so these are super complex topics that a lot of teams are facing these days. The capacity to track change at scale, so as legacy systems are decomposed into microservices, or new systems are built up in a way that they're small, independently releasable and testable, those are good things, but then managing your portfolio and understanding what's happening within your software delivery pipeline becomes very, very difficult. And then lastly, heterogeneous process and tools. So as teams experiment, as they try new processes, they try new tools, as new teams are onboarded and mature at different rates, they're leaving this sort of wake of different tooling and process in their wake that makes it difficult, again, to manage what's going on within your organization at scale. It's important to find a way to balance those, of course, because you want teams to be able to learn and experiment and do things, but you need to make sense of it organizationally as well. So as far as speaking the same language, so as I mentioned, DevOps is bringing in new people, new roles into the delivery teams, and misunderstandings are happening more and more frequently. The tools tend to be focused on developers at this time within the DevOps tool chain. So business users, non-technical users, and compliance users, these sorts of people are feeling left out. If you tell them, go log into Jenkins and figure out what's going on with our software delivery, it's a nearly impossible task to understand what's actually happening in there or how to conceptualize it as a software delivery pipeline. And on the communication side, as I mentioned, there's less permanent teams, Slack, HipChat, other tools. And then release management teams, as I mentioned. So these teams are changing in the DevOps world. They become less focused on the overall delivery, or they're less involved with the continuous delivery teams because the teams have been entrusted to do their delivery themselves. So there's no centralized planning function that's available to help bridge these communication gaps for them. Compliancy and security. So these teams have been at odds forever with each other. I think that we've all been in the situation where we've either tried to go fast, and the compliance teams come and slow you down and tell you that you need to do all of these strange requirements that don't make any sense. Or if you've worked on the compliancy side of things, then it's very hard to get all the development teams to respect the process and understand the value of what you deliver. In addition, these are constantly evolving topics in a regulatory sense, as well as in just the pace of change in these areas is really evolving quite rapidly with privacy, with everything else that's associated with these. And it's very difficult for engineering teams to keep up to pace with what's developing there and make sure that the software that they're building is compliant. Building trust between these teams is challenging, again, because they're speaking very different languages. And at its heart, this is really a cultural change. And I've seen this at many companies that I've worked at, where you're trying to bring DevOps to a company, and you really have to have a special sort of arrangement with the right people and the right personalities involved in order to bridge this gap. This is one of the most difficult ones that I've seen at any company that I've worked at, to bring these two together. And then on the faster and smaller releases front, so doing more smaller releases that are independently deliverable. Constant delivery is obviously the goal, and small components work best in order to achieve that goal. Making sense of it all can become, though, quite complex. This is one that I saw at Nike quite a bit, where we were doing lots of decomposing of legacy platforms. And so we had all of these little microservices that did one thing or the other. And when you tried to find a feature, when that would be delivered, that was happening across some unknown number of small microservices, it was incredibly challenging to then try and find where that feature would be delivered, or from a portfolio perspective, when is the feature going to be in the hand of the customers? Because it's being delivered across so many little individual development pipelines. Dependencies, API versions, and where is my feature become real problems here. Heterogeneous process. So some of you guys may have seen this as the XebiaLabs periodic table of DevOps tools. So each of these colors, for anybody who hasn't seen it, represent a category of DevOps tool, and then each of the boxes is a different tool that's available to solve that problem. Yeah?
Hey, just a question in your previous slide about
Sure.
the services, right?
Yep.
That's one of the things, right, is what service do I need, or where is that service and things that, I mean, how did you manage that? Or do you like have a service that tells you where the service, or how to access the service, what services are available and where they are, that kind of thing?
Well, we're seeing people, and I have struggled with it myself. You're trying to balance the pace of doing this delivery, because those microservices really do unlock delivery. It's really incredible for engineering teams to be able to deliver multiple times per day, the functionality that improves their service and makes things work. The ways that I've seen companies try to make sense of the whole, I've seen registries, I've seen architecture diagrams, which is not necessarily the way that I would recommend, but people are trying to find ways to do this and I don't know that there's a silver bullet solution yet for this sort of thing. But I imagine that as we move more and more into infrastructure as a service, infrastructure as code, that this can all kind of become defined together. These relationships can be defined together, and that can be the future of this. So with the heterogeneous tooling, so there's always new tools. There's always new ideas that are out there in the DevOps space, which is amazing, and it's a real strength that we have as we manage our companies. We want to encourage teams to experiment with these things. We want to allow different teams within our organizations to mature at different rates and be able to exist within our corporate infrastructures and deliver and learn and truly build this kind of learning organization that we were talking about. But that's just another aspect where if you've got different teams on different tools and different maturity levels, that it becomes very, very difficult as a portfolio manager at scale to understand what's happening within your software delivery pipeline. So We'll also talk today about a few of the solutions that we have within our platform. Feel free to jump in with any other questions that you guys might have. We can also talk about general solutions as well, but that's where we'll go next.
So just a question, you mentioned evolving role of release management.
Yeah.
So do you envision it being more of a overall just governance of the process and having the product teams, delivery teams, be able to execute everything necessary to move everything up through production?
Yes.
Understand how you see the role of
Yeah,
release
yeah.
management?
So my background is as a release manager, so I'm a little biased in terms of this, I think. But where I see the release management organization evolving is to become something like release management as a service. So providing these, like you said, the governance, the requirements of the release process and how software goes to production. But in addition to that, I think there's technology solutions that are possible in this space. So blackout periods, you can imagine a release management team providing a API that different teams can connect their deployment infrastructure to that enforces blackout dates at the release management level across the entire company so that engineering teams don't have to worry about that, but they can just integrate their deployment infrastructure to the service. That's where I see the future of release managers, more of a like coders within the release management team providing services that release management can do. Okay. So with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague Manu.
Thank you. So enough of challenges till now. We'll go through the solutions, and so in these days, actually, it's becoming a lot more common that you have a set of diverse participants in your team. They speak different language. On one hand of the spectrum, you have business experts who are less technical or no technical. And on the other side, you have code experts who are very much tech heroes, I would say. And how do you now attain to set the right balance between your team? How do you ensure that everyone in your team speaks the same language, right? So you have a drag and drop GUI, reports, notifications, risk intelligence, calendar view, and these are very top-level features which Excel Release could help you with. And this could be really helpful for business experts who would not like to go into very technical details of the tool. And on the same side, you have code experts who would be benefited by X files, you have APIs, you have custom tasks, tiles, plugins, and a lot more functionalities which Excel Release could provide you here. So Excel Release actually ensures that both the ends of the spectrum, and it kind of facilitates people to handshake and speak the same language, which is really a top-level challenge which we see, right? So I'll just go through one example that how Excel Release could help you there. So you have a release template. This could be very beneficial for a release manager or a less technical people who would just like to arrange the pipeline. You can see the drag and drop features there. You could see how to set up a different phase and all that. And on the same side, using an X file, this could be very much beneficial for a code expert who would like to set his pipeline his own way, not necessarily the drag and drop features, but maybe coding there and setting up a different phase using the variable. So that's how Excel Release is beneficial. And not only that, even a business expert could just click on that X file thing and export the code and provide it to the developer. That's how it could be beneficial in this way. Likewise, you have communication gaps, right? Because these days, your teams are just geographically distributed. You have team in, say, New York and another one in, say, Mumbai. And they're not only using emails, but they also use chat ops. So Excel Release could help you there in customizing your emails. They could, you can set priority on certain types of emails. You could edit the template of your email so that people don't tend to miss their emails. And if you have, say, high priority marks, so you just ensure that that mail is not being missed and people pay higher attention to that. And like Jason was referring that we have chat ops. So we also provide, like Excel Release could also provide you chat ops using, you have Slack, you have HipChat, you have PagerDuty, so that you just pull people into real time so that if there is a need of the hour, you're just not waiting for emails to be answered, but you're just pinging people to bring it to the process.
Go back to the slide, the configurable recipients per task. I know there you go.
Yeah.
Is that within it? Because what we're finding is we have our CMDBs, ownerships. We know that we don't want to maintain all that in Excel release and deploy. So how do you guys integrate with other platforms? Because that's been a struggle we've had up to date, which is how do we keep that up to date? We're self-service. We don't manage that. So how do you guys integrate with other platforms, or what have you seen?
Well, this is only for the Excel release. We are not integrating with other tools to send the emails yet.
Okay, so you're saying then if my ownership of my teams change, I got to go into Excel release and update that every time.
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
So you're saying it's configurable recipients per task and releasing
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
But I got to go in there and put that in there.
Oh, that's
correct?
right.
So
Yep.
if I got 1,000 developers, everyone's managing this.
But you would
we have
be-
app ownership. I got to enable them to go in the tools and manage that.
That's
It's got
right.
to be hard coded right now. It says configurable, but someone's got to go in the tool versus integrating with other platforms.
So maybe your answer would get, your question would get answered in one of the following slides,
Okay.
and maybe I could, I could come in. So what I mean is this. So you have different events based on task, and also you have different events based on release, right? So what do you mean by task? That you have, suppose you have a task and someone has added a comment on that, or the task has failed, or your release has failed. So you could configure your recipients here, ensuring that what are the set of recipients you would like to notify, right? Not necessarily you would like to notify, say for active task assigned. It's not necessary you would also like to notify a task team. So what I mean being configurable is that you could assign it only to task owner so that you just don't flood people with emails. And that's the notion we have, that we do not want to spam people's inboxes, so that we set relevant emails to relevant set of
I guess
people.
what I'm getting is, can you put that in the context of the app, whatever you're deploying, right? Because I might have manual tasks for 500 different applications.
That's true,
right? And
yeah.
therefore, I need to target specific audiences. So right now, I don't think there's an easy way to do that. I'd have to go in and set manual tasks for different groups, right?
Yes, that's
And
right.
You got to manage that. Okay.
Yeah, you need to manage that
Because
for
we're,
now.
yeah, we're trying to get out of that business because it's
Yeah.
self-service,
Okay,
which is
okay, yeah, get your
we've got
question
500
now.
plus applications on this.
Okay,
We have
Got
It's very
discussed,
hard to manage.
yeah, we have discussed that either making this externally available through an API or through
Yeah.
email addresses
Yeah.
so that other tools can use it, or connect externally.
Obviously, yes, you can manage that, but when you have 400 some apps,
I got you.
I can't sit there and take tickets and manage that.
Yeah.
We're gonna spend all day just trying to keep that up to date.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, okay, makes sense, yeah. Thanks for the question. Oh, So one of the solutions which I was referring, that in the emails you could also set the priority, say normal, high, or low, or you could just also make the subject or the body of the email editable. So it's not only the hard-coded email content which was sent by Excel release till now. So you could also configure the body and set it in your preferred way. You have more readable, easy, pretty HTML emails. So you see the email being, and very well you could configure all of that, as I showed you in one of the previous slides. And one of the features which we have, like Tim was also referring it one in his morning presentation, that this is especially helpful for, just imagine a VP who would like to notify that when is a release getting completed. So not necessarily she would like to be spammed with so many emails, but she can just subscribe to a particular task, which would tell that, okay, this is the task which I need to subscribe for, and this is the task which needs to be referred, right? So she wants to be notified, when is that failing, when is that getting completed, what is pending on that, and it's really as simple as that, just clicking that watcher's link over there, and you could as well assign someone else as a watcher. You also have reminders, and reminders are helpful in that case. So it really helps people that what's coming on next, right? So you need not necessarily be doing all those calculations that when to send a reminder to that person. You just make sure that that task is not getting missed. So Excel release is doing that for you. It's just, it sets a reminder email for, say, 75% of the time for the duration elapsed, and it would start triggering the reminder emails to the person, and you can then configure that who would you like to notify. And you can also notify it and mark a release admin there along with the task owner, so that if the task owner is not picking, the release admin is very well aware of that. So these are the few solutions which Excel release is providing. And since Tim already, yes?
So earlier you made reference to a vice president who's a use case. What happens if that person is getting emails, but then they leave the company. So our security removes their access from the Excel release system. Would the system still try to send emails to that person, and does it go to a dead letter, or how do you handle those situations when there's a person, the email's been like decommissioned?
That wouldn't send the email at all to that person, as in because that email address is not at all existing now, right?
But how would administrators know that, oh, wait a second, it's trying to send an email to an email address that's now invalid?
So just a question I have. So whenever a person leaves, so are you not decommissioning that email address or inactive kind of thing? Are you doing that, right?
Yeah.
So in that case, wouldn't a release admin or an administrator be aware already that this person is not there?
The more important question, maybe you have that process down, so you delete them, right? If someone took over the role, so when you delete that person, I don't know, does Excel release say, hey, you're removing
No.
from 50 watchers, do you want to replace it? And that's where I'm getting at. We're finding, as we integrate for an enterprise scale, these are the features that aren't there yet. I'd rather just say, hey, go find the app owner or the app VP and an API and use that. That way you don't have to worry about managing all that decommissioning. And so it works fine at a small scale. When you try to really scale this up, that's where we're facing our challenges with the communication.
So he hasn't deployed Excel release yet, but we're kind of modeling the process, and I never envisioned putting actual email addresses in Excel release versus distribution groups.
Yep.
Right, so Excel release needs to know, like say app X has a certain amount of roles, and let the role either be managed by whoever does your user provisioning or delegate it out to the people who are also doing whatever work is being done. This way, Excel release needs to know. Since distribution group, as people come and go, roles change, people get put in and out, they automatically get those kinds of emails. So is that a viable?
Yeah, that
Yes.
is how it works through
Yes.
LDAP.
Okay.
So-
I was thinking about the same, I think Eric was saying up there, having the same issue, how do we get around that when people kind of move, change roles, who wants to be in, who wants to be out? I'm thinking that, well, you push out the distribution groups. Again, you need more distribution groups per application or messaging you want to do, but it can be managed outside of the tool.
Yeah.
Not so. Yeah.
You can do LDAP in Active Directory, yeah.
Active, yeah.
We haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really an answer to your
We're
question.
trying to take it one step further, which is, no, that's what we do, but we're trying to take one step further, that is, we don't want, once we build out the pipelines and all,
Yeah.
we want it to be completely self-service. So if you want to change your distribution group associated with your app, you can do that too. And it doesn't provide that, but that's something, we can build a customization for
Yeah.
them.
And we can talk about that after as well.
It's not a showstopper, it's just something that I can see as you guys try to really, we're trying to scale it up to a huge audience and really the self-service model. More and more, same with the dictionaries and things like that,
Yeah.
relying on external sources. So you have these, I would say, these tools are the basic things, like if you don't have your own solution, but making it easy to hook into your solution, my
Yeah.
solution.
Yeah.
Cool. I'd like to hand over to Jason.
So then on the compliancy front, so I talked a bit about this, but the compliance team tends to see the developer or DevOps side as the cowboy culture, that they prioritize speed over thoroughness, that perhaps they have a lack of respect and a lack of understanding of what the compliance teams bring to the organization. Developers kind of conversely see that the compliance team doesn't really get why we need to deliver fast. Perhaps they're old-fashioned and don't really understand the way that things are evolving. And again, a lack of respect and a lack of understanding of what the role brings or the value that it brings to the organization. The reality, though, that I find is when you get everybody together, nobody is really opposed to going fast. What people are opposed to is playing loose with the rules and perhaps skipping over the security scans, skipping over the compliancy checks. And then the reality, though, is that those rules help ensure the success of the projects, because if a product goes out and it has security problems in it, no one's going to be rewarded in the end for having delivered it quickly. The solution here is to do the DevOps thing and bring compliancy also in, and the other governance teams into the team and work together on the solution. And I've seen some really incredible things that people are building in order to bring those things in, to automatically do the compliancy checks as part of the release process in a way that technical, in a way that's automated and fast, and doesn't have some of those old problems that we used to run into. With an XL release, we talked a bit about this, but the task-oriented view makes it clear to the compliancy team where their requirements are in the process. So if this is the compliancy gate in order to make sure that the security scan was run, the compliancy team, even if they're non-technical, can come in and check on the status of that audit and ensure that that's being done. XL release can become the single source of truth for the entire compliancy process. We also have activity logs and audits that are available permanently within the application. Blackout periods are something that we sort of recently added to the product. Those can be built in XLR and enforced through the tool. I've worked in many companies now where we've done a big change control board for these sorts of freezes, and it becomes much, much simpler when you do this through automation.
Real quick, with your feature that you built out, can you group them? Because like we have our trading paths, there's blackouts versus, different features. So
Yeah.
is this just one general blackout period? Can you group apps with different blackout periods?
Yeah, it's per folder at the moment, and then that's configurable as well. We're looking at enhancing that and potentially doing it off of tags and other things
They
as
can
well.
compare it as well. So you're saying if I have, is at a folder level, so if I want to apply the same thing to all the different apps.
Yeah.
I can do
So
it
it's
for
at a
each.
global
You can also
level.
apply
Yeah.
globally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you couldn't say currently you couldn't do to 20 of your 40 folders. That would be, yeah. The other really nice thing about this for the compliance teams, and in order to meet the goals of compliancy, is that all of this is in code as well. So the release process could be audited through automation to make sure that the compliance gates haven't been removed and that sort of thing. You're able to diff, version, see a history of who changed the release process. So these are all big wins for compliancy teams. And the one thing that I learned when I was at Nike, rolling out DevOps at the company, was that building the trust between the two organizations, so release and I did this within release, getting the compliancy teams and the DevOps teams together. The release was a great function for everybody to kind of understand the compliancy process, because it's really where the rubber hits the road there. And everybody who wants to get engaged with that and build a good compliancy process can understand it through the release process. So we were able to build a lot of trust within our organization and get this stuff done in a way that worked well for everybody. This faster, smaller releases issue is one that we saw very, very quickly at Nike when I was there. We started doing lots and lots of small microservices, lots and lots of delivery, and it became really, really difficult to tell what was happening where. So what we've done within XL Release is add this new risk feature where even if you've got hundreds of releases running simultaneously, we have this algorithm that can determine where the risk within your releases are and bring the attention of those releases to your release managers or whoever's doing kind of like that portfolio delivery management for your company. We're looking to enhance this with some of the insight stuff that Tim demoed today, so we can have even smarter kinds of risk analysis and detection within the product. So we'll look to have that demo for you guys sometime soon.
Is that customizable?
Yes, it's
You can set your own rules that
yeah.
define
It's not in the 7.0 product, but we're working on that for the next version. Tags, Tim talked about in his keynote as well. These let you slice and dice and interact with the releases in any number of ways. You can tag on technology, organization, or any other even feature release and manage them that way. And then for the future, some of the other things that we're looking to build are having the context of feature delivery within the application natively. So understanding within a release, within XLR, what features are included in it and how those are flowing through the system. More advanced relationships between the releases that we have today, so dependencies and triggering and other things in more advanced ways and more intelligent ways based off of the insights stuff that we're building. And then, like I said, more risk intelligence, more complex and customizable configuration of the risk detection feature. We do have a user panel that's out in the hall in the other building where you can see a demo of some of these features and also sign up to participate in helping us design some of these things. It'd be great to sign up there too if you have thoughts on scaling other features or want to advocate for anything in the product. It's a great way to do that. As I said before, experimentation is smart. One of the things that we do to support this is build lots and lots of plugins that let you try and integrate with different technologies in your release stack and abstract that away from the visualization of the release. Okay. That lets you balance everything and get make everything visible to everybody, no matter what tooling they're using. They can interact with the release process and see things in the way that makes the most sense for them. We have a similar feature in XL Deploy with the model-based view, where it lets you do the application and the environment on one side and have like a really clear understanding of the application for people who are non-technical or technical, and they can interact with it in any case. We saw a demo of Insight, so I'm not going to go through that again. In closing, though, we've seen a few different challenges and solutions here. Are there any other questions that anybody has? Yes. Yeah.
So, you talked about the integration with compliance.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk any insights on integration with infrastructure and operations? I mean, about the cultural shift there with the dev teams?
Within the release process?
Yes.
So,
How did Nike address that?
well, we did it through kind of the other way around. The dev and ops side were integrated through just straight DevOps, so it wasn't really in the release process. It was done, they were sort of switched over to work together on the DevOps side within the pre-delivery side of things. So by the time things were entering the release process, it wasn't, now we bring in operations and start thinking about how that's going to work. So they were working together earlier. Maybe we can catch up after the meeting and I can understand the question a little bit more. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
As part of your roadmap, are you thinking about incorporating calendaring?
Calendaring, yeah. So that's part of the microservices view thing that I was talking about. But yes, we want to do more advanced viewing of kind of what releases are coming in, and not only that, but how they're dependent on each other. And if there's risk happening here, does it possibly put a release here at risk? So yes, it's definitely something that we're looking at. Yep.
Couple questions. One was about the whole X-file thing.
Yep.
What was the thinking behind making it? It looked like code doing
Yes.
as opposed to like a configuration like JSON or YAML or something like that.
We're actually out of time. That's a great topic, though. But let's chat about that afterwards.
Well, I have one other quick add-on too.
Okay, sure.
Do you use your tool stack internally?
Yes, we do. Every release which happens internally is both XL Deploy and XL Release.
Yeah. When you saw the XL Insight data on the demo earlier, that was actually our own software development process.
That's our own. So we advocate what we do then.
So